The galactic orphanage station orbited the neutral zone between three major civilizations, a gleaming monument to interspecies cooperation. Its crystalline spires housed thousands of displaced younglings from across the galaxy, each waiting for a family to claim them. But in the shadowy corner of Ward 7, beneath a flickering light panel, huddled a creature no one wanted. Era was small, even for a draconian hatchling. Her crimson scales, which should have gleamed like rubies, were dull from malnutrition. Her wings, barely larger than a human's hands, trembled as she curled into herself. 3 months she had been here, and 3 months the prospective parents had walked past her without a second glance. 2. Small, the Zentari merchants had said. Weak. Bloodline, the draconian nobles had sneered. A liability. The Krillian warriors had concluded, even the compassionate Elysians, known for their charitable hearts, had simply smiled sadly and moved on to healthier specimens. In a galaxy that valued strength, efficiency, and genetic perfection, Era was an anomaly no one could afford. Rayan noticed her on his 3rd week at the station. He was Humana, species still considered primitive by most galactic standards, barely a century into their spacefaring existence. The orphanage station had hired him as a maintenance worker, one of the few jobs humans could secure in the wider galaxy. His people were known as jack-of-all-trades, capable of fixing almost anything with enough time and spare parts, but masters of nothing that mattered to the great civilizations. As Rayan pushed his cleaning cart down Ward 7, checking air filtration systems and replacing worn panels, he heard it, a tiny broken sound. A whimper. He found Era tucked behind a ventilation shaft, her small body shaking. The food dispenser for her section had malfunctioned again. Station protocol dictated that maintenance requests for low-priority wards could take up to 72 hours. Era hadn't eaten in 2 days. "Hey there, little one," Rayan whispered, kneeling down slowly. Era's golden eyes widened with fear. Every large being who approached had only brought disappointment or pain. But this human, this strange, soft-skinned creature smelled different. He smelled of soap and metal polish, of honest work and something else she couldn't name. Kindness, perhaps. Rayan reached into his lunch container and pulled out a sandwich. "You like protein?" "It's synthesized chicken." "Well, what humans call chicken." He broke off a piece and held it out. Era stared at the offering. Her instincts screamed caution, but hunger won. She crept forward and snatched the food, retreating immediately. The taste exploded on her tongue, nothing like the bland nutrient paste she'd been given. This had flavor, texture, care. "There you go," Rayan smiled. "I'll get that dispenser fixed right now." "Can't have you starving?" He kept his word. Within an hour, the food dispenser hummed to life. But more importantly, Rayan kept returning. Every shift, he'd stop by Ward 7 with small treats from the human quarters bred with honey, fruits from Earth's agricultural bay, even a chocolate chip cookie that made Era's eyes widen with delight. "What are you doing?" His supervisor, a rigid Krillian named Vexler, demanded one day. "That unit is unadoptable. Stop wasting resources." "She's not a unit," Rayan replied quietly. "She's a child. She's a genetic failure. The Draconian Council has already declared her unsuitable for their species' gene pool. The kindest thing—" "Don't," Rayan interrupted, his voice harder than Vexler had ever heard. "Don't you dare finish that sentence." The human's eyes held something the Krillian warrior recognized from ancient texts about Earth, righteous fury. The willingness to fight for those who couldn't fight for themselves, even when logic dictated otherwise. It was the same irrational stubbornness that had driven humanity to punch above their weight class in every conflict. They'd entered, Vexler backed down. Confused and slightly unsettled, that night Rayan made a decision. Using his access codes, he converted Supply Closet 7B into something more. He installed heating coils for Ara's cold-blooded metabolism, arranged soft blankets into a nest, and hung human fairy lights along the walls. He requisitioned damaged items that were perfectly functional, a holopad for entertainment, cushions marked for disposal, even a small mirror because he'd read that young Draconians needed to see their reflections for healthy development. "Era," he said, Using the name he'd given her, it meant lion-hearted in one of Earth's ancient languages. How would you like a real home? At least until we find you a proper family. Era looked up at him, tears forming in her reptilian eyes. In 3 months, no one had offered her anything but pity or disdain. This human, this primitive being, was offering her what the advanced civilizations had not: dignity, warmth, and a place to belong. She clicked softly, a draconian gesture of acceptance, and followed him to Supply Closet 7B. The transformation was immediate. With regular meals, warmth, and genuine affection, Era began to thrive. Her scales regained their luster, gleaming like polished garnets under the fairy lights. Her wings strengthened as Rayan researched draconian development and created exercises to help her. He read to her from Earth's storybooks, teaching her about dragons who were heroes, not failures, the other workers noticed, of course. Some disapproved, others were indifferent, but a few: a Zentari engineer, an Elysian nurse. A human cook began leaving small gifts outside Supply Closet 7B, a toy here, a blanket there, treats from their own quarters. 6 months later, a delegation from the Draconian High Command arrived at the station. They'd heard rumors of a human harboring one of their kind in improper conditions. Vexler, following protocol, had filed a report. Rayan stood before the imposing dragons, Era peeking from behind his legs. He expected condemnation, perhaps even criminal charges. Instead, the lead dragon, ancient and scarred, stared at Era with unreadable eyes. "She has transformed," the elder rumbled. "How?" "I gave her what she needed," Rayan said simply. "Food, shelter, love." "Love," the elder repeated, as if tasting an unfamiliar word. "The weak are culled in our society. It is our way. It ensures strength." "Then your way is wrong," Rayan stated, his voice unwavering despite the danger. "Strength isn't just physical. This little one has survived rejection, starvation, and loneliness. She's stronger than any of you realize." The elder dragon's eyes narrowed. Then, surprisingly, he laughed, a sound like grinding boulders. "Perhaps humans are not so primitive after all. You see value where we saw waste. You built a home where we saw only a closet." He turned to leave, then paused. "The hatchling may stay with you, human. Raise her as you see fit. When she comes of age, she may choose her path: draconian or human or something entirely new." He fixed Rayan with a knowing stare. "Sometimes the smallest acts of defiance create the greatest ripples. The Draconian Council will reconsider certain policies." After they left, Era looked up at Rayan with wonder. "They let me stay?" "They let you stay," Rayan confirmed, scooping her into his arms. "But honestly, even if they hadn't, I'd have found a way. That's what families do." "Families?" Era's voice was small, hopeful. "Yeah, kid, families." Rayan smiled. "Welcome home." In Supply Closet 7B? Beneath the fairy lights and among the damaged goods, a small dragon orphan finally found what the galaxy's advanced civilizations couldn't provide: a place where she was wanted. Not despite her weakness, but including all of who she was. And in the end, that made all the difference.